It's another episode of Average Sports with you guys, Eric and Ty. You're average, guys. You're average at most. But we are still your host, and we're talking sports. Glad to have you in for another episode. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic today. It's a beautiful day here, so let's get this rolling. But there's one thing we're not talking about, Ty. What's that?
That's right. It's Butler going to Philly. Over.
Done.
Moving on.
Next.
Some good football matches. Can you call them matches? That's very European. How about some good football on the gridiron games? That was happening. I'm just going to go ahead and cut you off because I know you were getting excited to mention this. Your Cleveland Browns won a third game.
But are you stealing my thunder, man?
Yeah.
You're mowing my lawn over here.
That's all right.
3, baby.
Yep. So one
3,
more.
2
We're
more.
going to tie that bet. And you need 2 more, though.
Two more.
That's still a tall order. What did you see, though, for other NFL games?
Obviously, one of the ones that we talked about last week, best games to watch, the Saints and the Rams. That game was awesome.
Yeah.
Really lived up to the expectations there. It was a lot of fun to watch, and being an owner of some Los Angeles Rams players in fantasy, I was really pulling for the Saints for multiple reasons, but want to keep that a little bit closer so they don't rest their guys in Week 16 when I really need them.
Yeah, in that last Thursday Carolina game, who'd they play? It's coming to me. By the way, that was
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, thank you. That was an interesting game in the first quarter, and then it kind of that was a weird one.
Yeah, Booty Scoot and Cam Newton did some work early first quarter, and then it really got away from them. So
yeah. And then speaking of the Saints, they just played Cincinnati, and that game was not so great. I mean, the Saints just crushed them. They looked too good.
They rolled them.
Yeah,
real good.
So we're not going to spend
Andy Dalton looked like he was in prime time.
Yeah, he thought he was. But
it was bad.
Yeah,
it was real bad.
Well, we're not going to spend too much time talking about NFL. We are going to talk a little NHL, bring you some standings, and really focus some time on the NBA on this episode. We haven't given it too much light in the last few weeks, so let's get into it. Some impressions, and mainly on this topic, what we found interesting about this was it just feels like the NBA this season is scoring more points. So we kind of did a little homework and to find out, in fact, they are scoring on average more points this season. Eric, any takes on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were talking about with this is it seems it was very pushed off that it was like a big rule change with everything that kind of happened in the offseason. And there were 3 rule changes, but none of them were centered around this. There was a shot clock reset rule change, simplification of the clear rule change, as well as there was the hostile act rule change. So there were 3 rule changes going into this, but really what it comes down to is when we were talking about the NBA and what has really been a change is the freedom of movement, which is the hand checking essentially is really what it can be atoned to. And the rule originally initiated back in the mid 90s, 1994, right after Michael Jordan retired the first time, as a way to make perimeter players more relevant and to get more scoring into the league as well. Then he came back and they kind of let it go until the mid 2000s, like 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And they started to kind of bring it back, and then they really kind of got rid of it, but didn't really call it until this year. It's been a huge emphasis. And there were some statistics that you went ahead and pulled up, that scoring is on pace to be at an all-time high.
Yeah, in the last several years,
this year.
It's been on its way up. In just the last season, it was 105.8 points on average for games or for teams scoring. But that's moved on up for this season already, being at 112.4. So if it stays on that path, it turns out high scoring, though, however, is pretty cyclical. This is not the first time the NBA has been scoring a ton of points, which to our surprise looks like back in the 70s, like 70 and 71. So we're talking about over 40 years. That year, teams averaged 112.4 points. So the same where this season of the NBA is at. It's just taken a while to get back there. So maybe the sport has seen some time where it's higher points. To me, it seems unusual. I like seeing a little bit more defense where teams might not actually get to 100 points. But I don't know. In your opinion, if it's is basketball something more entertaining if everyone's making baskets?
I mean, here's the way that I kind of think about this is it's all about the highlight and the age that we live in where everything is accessible, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, on any other sort of medium that's out there. You can get these 20, 30-second video clips that are really capturing their audience. There's so many ways to take in the content of, the NBA, the Major League Baseball, hockey, football. There's so many ways to take it in. And this is one of the avenues that I think that they're really, really going after is they want to make sure that they're having the audience be grabbed even by these huge highlights, because that's what's exciting to them. If you get a breakaway and someone is able to do like this crazy slam home dunk or something like that, that's one of the things that they want. And it creates these highlights and it creates these talking points and this buzz that is centered around, their sport and their action and everything that's happening. And, outside of, Bill Lampier punching people in the face in the 80s and the 90s, and other fights and things like that, if it's just a good defensive game, you're not really going to talk about that. And that doesn't get the talking point up that, oh man, you see such great defense in the lane last night versus like LeBron James was dunking over everybody last night. That was so exciting. That's what the league is going for. Do I want to see 112 points every game on average? Probably not. I'd like to see it honestly a little lower in the 101, 102 range. I think that could be super exciting. You get the triple digit kind of score, but it can still be competitive. At a little bit lower point where you can still have a lot of offense and incorporate some defensive aspects to it. But 112 points is a lot.
It is a lot, and at some point you have to see the sport, I think, that it has a component of defense. You might as well otherwise just give free shots to the other team. I mean, I guess pressuring them makes making baskets easier, or harder, rather. But we're still seeing everyone's accuracy is incredible as well. So you're going to see a lot of high points if you can't introduce some defense in there. So it depends on what you really like and what you enjoy about the sport, but it'll get stale, in my opinion. But very social conscious of you, Eric, to throw in some of those points about just what the league is trying to market themselves as. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note that the league has really been wanting to eliminate things like holding and grabbing and pushing and shoving, the hand checking. They put this rule in back in the 90s because they wanted more scoring in their league. And, it's taken some time to really be put into effect and then really focusing on it. But I mean, this is the direction that they wanted to go. How far are they really going to eliminate, the defense or really hinder them by making more and more rules that really, impact the offense? We hear this all the time in the NFL. So I think there is some parity to be said between the two leagues there. But the offensive mind aspect is really what they're going for there. The rule hasn't changed. They're just calling it more. And that's a quote from Lakers coach Luke Walton. He's like, this is the same rule. They're just actually calling it now.
Yeah, interesting. Worth keeping an eye on, or at least in mind, as we navigate through the NBA season. So with that, the NHL, we're going to move it over to the ice from the hardwood planks. Right? They're made of planks on the basketball court. Sure, why not? We're going into NHL standings. We're checking in on seeing what the teams are up to, and I'm going to lead it off, actually, if you don't mind, Eric. I'll just start it off with the Eastern
Go
Conference.
for it.
Well, Tampa Bay, no real big surprise there. That club is still looking strong for this season. They're sitting at the top with overall 25 points. Toronto and Boston split 22 points apiece, as well as Montreal is just a point below them at 21. You have Columbus, Buffalo, and Philly falling at 5, 6, and 7. And then the number 8 spot in the Eastern Conference is the New York Islanders. Still doing all right for the beginning portion of the season, but tied with the Rangers. So if playoffs were here today, we'd have to figure something out there. Looking at Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina, Ottawa, Detroit, Florida, and New Jersey in the East, who are technically on the bubble, but we still have lots of hockey left.
Yeah, but it looks like the Capitals are still a little bit hungover.
I think so.
Yeah.
No surprise there. We saw how they party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing you'll hear at the bottom of this is how the other Stanley Cup team from last year is doing. But we're going to start at the top instead of the bottom here. So Nashville has 26 points. Best team from last year is still rolling this year strong.
Yep.
You got Minnesota at 24, Vancouver 22, Winnipeg and Calgary 21 apiece. You roll out Dallas there at 20, San Jose 19. You got a bunch of teams there at the 17-point mark. Edmonton, Arizona, Colorado, and Anaheim. Ducks are all at 17 points. Rounded out with another group of the 15s, St. Louis Blues, Chicago Blackhawks, and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Western Conference defending champions down there at second to last in their conference, followed in last by possibly going to be the worst team in the NHL this year, the Los Angeles Kings at 11 points.
Yeah, that's looking terrible down there. There's some really surprising teams in the West that are at the bottom that you're usually seeing at the top. That whole conference is almost flipped on its head, with like Arizona sitting on 9th place. Crazy. Good for them, though, for improving. So that is your NHL Lightning standings. Hey, Eric, got a question for you on who you got for our show. You ready for this one?
No, I'm not.
I was watching,
don't want to answer
I was
this
watching
question.
some football last Sunday, and I saw a commercial for the new, Rocky movie. It's really a Creed movie. Now it's just a Creed series. So if you, hey, who you got in that fight, man? Creed or the Russians kid?
This is the worst who you got we've ever done.
It's so silly because this movie is silly. I think that's where I'm really coming from this.
Oh my God, you got Michael B. Jordan who can't act. Somehow continues to get roles. God, I mean, we know how this is going to end. We know Drago's kid is going to be punching the daylights out of him in like round 12 and a half. And then all of a sudden he's going to come out, staggering, halfway through that round and somehow knock him out, because we know that's what's going to happen. I think we've seen this movie how many times? 5, 6, 7, 10 times already?
They're going to try to do something different. It's 2018. They're going to do something different. It's Creed in 3. Creed in 3. That's what we got.
It's going to be the same thing we've seen every time.
Well, with that, how about some real games in reality? Some best games to watch coming up. Eric, what do you have there?
Oh, I know, we opened the show with saying that we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Butler to Philly. Because we're not talking about Jimmy Butler going to Philadelphia, I want you guys to go out there and watch some of their next games. For the new look 76ers featuring Jimmy Butler, they play the Heat, the Magic, and the Jazz this week. So check it out, see what you guys think, and we can come back to how Jimmy Butler's doing there next time.
Okay, very good. We were talking about some hockey as well. St. Louis and Chicago, they have a primetime matchup on a Wednesday night rivalry on November 14th. I think that's always a good game to watch if you're a hockey fan. And then over in the NBA, any Milwaukee game seems like kind of what we were talking about before. What you were mentioning, Eric, with getting those highlights. Milwaukee is a highlight machine right now.
Yes, they are.
Then the Nuggets are playing above their average. So they're looking good for a start.
Let's see how they finish out. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
That's going to do it for our show, I think, Eric, unless you got anything else to say.
Nah, man. Keep it short, sweet, to the point this week. Let's do it.
Sir.
All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, listening. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Send us your questions on our Facebook page or to avgsportsguys@gmail.com. We'll see y'all next time.
That's one. So you really didn't like the who you got?
No.
Well, we'll have a better next time.